What's up, guys? Welcome back to Ep8. Today we're going to talk about some simplistic theories that people use to describe dieting. They work, but they're very basic, and I think that I can shed a little bit of light on some of these subjects. Also, I want to talk a little bit about your nutritional status, getting your nutrients preferably from your food, and why I think that's important. It's one of the things that I did the entire time I was on the Croissant diet. I kept track of my nutrient intake and was trying to get the bulk of my vitamins and minerals from the food that I ate, and I'll explain why in this video. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the concept calories in, calories out. Yes, it's true that if you saw a statement where it said that I was eating above my maintenance and losing weight, technically that's not true. What that means is that the foods that I used to eat, if I ate them at a certain level, say 3,200 calories a day, that would maintain my weight. When I changed the foods that I was eating, where they were coming from, when I got rid of the polyunsaturated fat, I started losing weight even though I was eating more than 3,200 calories. So the fact that you calculated your maintenance level, and maybe you even maintained it like I did for a week and said, hey, I ate 3,200 every day for a week and I maintained my weight, that's my maintenance calories. But all calories are not the same. And that's what I want to talk about. So the real simple idea is that a gram of fat has 9 calories, and a gram of protein has 4, and a gram of carbs has 4. So the original way that calories were calculated, and this may be a little bit off, but the basic concept is right. They took a small amount, let's say a gram of the substance, they put it over a flame, they put it underneath a liter of water, and it was the amount of the substance, or maybe it was the amount of a substance that it was required to raise the temperature of that liter of water by 1 degree centigrade. So that's where the calories came from. Now, I don't know about you, but I do not have a flame down in my belly waiting for me to pour things on it and burn it. But that's where calories came from. So these different things, proteins and fats, and obviously if you have a candle and you put oil into that flame, that's going to flare up more than if you put, well, broccoli would probably put it out. But anyway, you get the point. So this is where the concept of calories came from. It was a measure to describe how much heat you could produce when you burn something. The problem is that we aren't locomotives. You're not stoking coal into a furnace. We are a metabolic chemistry machine. And every single thing that we take into our bodies has varying effects on all that chemistry. So people lump things together, carbs, and I always say, well, I'm avoiding carbs. Well, which kind? You know, are you avoiding amylose, sucrose, dextrose, fructose, lactose? What are you avoiding? Are you avoiding, complex carbs? Are you avoiding simple sugars? Which simple sugar? Lactose in milk, or sucrose, or glucose, or fructose? Like, what are you talking about when you just say blanketly say carbs? So people say, well, I want to keep my carbs here and I want to keep my fats here. Well, what kind of fats? Are you talking about omega-6s, omega-3s? Are you talking about stearic acid, palmitic acid? Are you talking about saturated or unsaturated fat? So these are all different substances, and when they come into the body, they have different chemical reactions. And so this is the whole point, I think, behind the Croissant diet, was that Brad discovered through reading some of the work of others, Peter at Hyperlipid, and a hypothesis that he had about how the French could eat the way they ate and manage to stay lean. And they figured out, hey, if you get the polyunsaturated fat out of your diet and you increase the amount of particularly stearic acid, but palmitic basically works too, just not quite as much because of the amount of carbons that are in the chain, you can do what's called a reverse electron transport, which causes your fat cells to become locally insulin resistant. And all that basically means is that you're just going to burn fat faster. That's the bottom line. So, well, if that's true, then I thought vegetable oil's fat and, beef fat is fat, and they both have 9 calories, so they're the same, right? You get where I'm going with this. If you want to use the flame analogy, let's go to something mechanical that uses combustion. Take a car. If you take a gasoline-powered car and you pour diesel fuel into that car, how far are you going to go? It's reverse. Take gasoline and pour it into a diesel car. How far are you going to go? Well, they're both fuel, so we could just use the category of fuel to describe diesel and gas, and they both burn inside flames, and they both generate a lot of heat, but they don't work in both of those machines because those machines work differently. Well, our bodies work way differently than both of those machines, so you can't just make it that simple. It's a napkin sketch conversation that someone had once, and it's been repeated verbatim forever, and everyone uses it. And in general, it's true. I mean, if you are a person who has a bowl of cereal and a glass of juice, and a piece of toast for breakfast, and you have a sandwich and a bag of chips for lunch, and you have some kind of meat and some kind of starch for dinner, and that's what you have, and you have a salad with Thousand Island dressing on it, and that's what you have all the time. It's true that if you take that basic setup and you say, well, I'm gonna take that piece of toast and I'm gonna eat half as much, or I'm gonna use skim milk instead of whole fat milk because that's gonna lower my calories, or I'm gonna put 1 slice less cheese on my sandwich, or I'm gonna get the baked chips instead of the ones that are fried, then yeah, your basic chemistry of your diet didn't change. You just reduced the calories a little bit, and that should result in a calorie deficit. You should start losing weight. So yeah, the concept is true if you use it in very simple terms. But think of it this way. If you had a substance that you could take into your body and it attached to the receptor sites in your body where your thyroid hormone is supposed to work, where thyroid is supposed to do its job regulating your metabolism, your cellular respiration. And that same substance could also go to your thyroid gland and inhibit its ability to produce thyroid, at least limit it to a certain degree, and over time keep making the amount it produces smaller and smaller and smaller, and clogging up more and more of your cells and preventing them from allowing thyroid to do its job, regulate your metabolism. So if you had a substance that could do that, we know there's a term, it's called hyperthyroid. Like people, sometimes it happens when people are young, they're hyperthyroid, and these people's metabolisms are so fast that they can eat 2 large pizzas and drink a gallon of milk and a couple of liters of Pepsi, and like full sugar Pepsi or high fructose corn syrup Pepsi or whatever they put in Pepsi. And these people don't gain weight because their metabolism are running so fast because their body is producing so much thyroid. And then we have the reverse. Happens to a lot of people when they get older. You could be in your 60s and you could be, or in your 70s, and you could be hypothyroid at a young age too. I'm not saying you have to be old to be hypothyroid, but when you're hypothyroid, your calorie requirement is very small to maintain your weight. I mean, I've seen ladies that need to eat they can maintain their weight on 1,000 calories a day, but how much they weigh and how much they're eating don't match up for what any calorie calculator would tell them they need. So their thyroid hormone is suppressed, and even if they're taking synthetic thyroid, they still might have all their receptors in their body blocked up by this substance I'm talking about. And you guys can guess what this substance is. It's polyunsaturated fat. It's omega-6 fatty acids. So the gram of fat from this and the gram of fat from this over here, two different fats, stearic acid and linoleic acid, they're not the same, and they don't respond the same way in your machinery. One is, if you're a gas-powered car, one is like diesel fuel, the other one's like gasoline. One of them works, and one of them damages the machinery. So that's what I'm talking about. When I was at a point where I started this, and I initially started it like most people do, where I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get rid of all the polyunsaturated fat, and I'm going to start eating more, saturated fat. So I was eating more butter, more heavy cream, I was eating buttered croissants, and cheese. I wasn't measuring anything because initially I was just trying out the concept, right? And I had days where I was eating 4,000 and 5,000 calories. Now I had calculated my maintenance calories at 3,200, but I had days where I ate 4,000 and 5,000 calories, and I was still getting on the scale the next day and a pound lighter, a pound and a half lighter. Like, I lost the first 18 to 20 pounds in the first 6 weeks. And then I lost the next 20 pounds over the next 6 months. So, it was slower after that. And also, there was a point after this initial surge, and I have a theory, and that's all it is. It's just a theory. You can take it for a grain of salt. I have a theory that whenever I stopped taking in the polyunsaturated fat, I had a surge in thyroid production because I took the toxin out that was damaging that production, and I removed it from circulation, clogging up my cells. And I had a surge in thyroid production, and my body quickly regulated that. So after a couple of weeks, it normalized, and I got back to where I could eat at a certain level and maintain my weight. But there was this initial surge, and I've seen this in a bunch of people. My mom, she came to visit, and she said, "I want to try this." And I was like, I don't know, Mom. This may not be the right thing to do for you, but if you want to, I'll tell you all about it. So I told her about it, and she did it. And she's hypothyroid. She takes synthetic thyroid. And she has to eat 1,200 calories a day to maintain her weight. She got on this, so we designed a diet for her with 1,200 calories and a very tiny amount of saturated fat. We put in like a tablespoon of butter and 2 tablespoons of heavy cream, and that was basically it for her saturated fat. The rest of her diet was like steel cut oats, carrots, an egg, some toast, those kinds of things. But eliminating the polyunsaturated fat. She lost 11 pounds in 3 weeks. For a person who's been eating the same amount of calories for years, not losing anything. She ate the same amount of calories she was eating before. She lost 11 pounds in 3 weeks. Now it's stabilized, and also I said we might need to increase your calories a little bit. I don't want you losing that fast. This is my mom we're talking about here. This isn't somebody in their 30s who's, trying to, lose weight quick for some beach pictures. So anyway, my point is all the calories you eat, they don't just line up like 9 calories per gram, because some of these substances that we take in can do damage, can slow down metabolic processes, which leads me to the next part that I want to talk about, which is your nutritional status, your vitamins and your minerals. A lot of people don't put a lot of stock in that. And so I get it. But when I designed my diet, after I went through my initial binge where I was just eating a lot of saturated fat and I had some of those high calorie days, I kind of settled into over time, I settled into this picture, which you've seen what I eat in a day. And that's what I wound up with. And I've since modified that. I'm eating very different than that now, but I've also been maintaining my weight for 6 to 8 weeks now. I'm like right at 207, 208, just daily. My weight's just staying flat. And I'm eating about 3,600 calories a day now instead of the 2,800, 2,900 that I ate the whole time I was coming down. But the whole time I was putting all my foods into Chronometer, and whenever I would look at the daily report, I'd click the button and I would see, how much vitamin A I was getting, how much B1, B2, niacin, folic acid, biotin. I was looking at those things, and I was clicking on the individual nutrient to see which foods I ate gave me that nutrient. And as I discovered foods that were giving me more of something, where at the end of the day I was running low, like I hadn't hit 100% or so forth, and I still had some calories left, I'd go get something. It's like people were like, okay, well, you eat Haagen-Dazs ice cream, that's crazy, it's just, empty calories. No, it's not. It's got a ton of calcium, got a ton of potassium, got a lot of retinol, vitamin A in it. There's a whole complement of nutrients in a pint of Haagen-Dazs. Punch it into Chronometer, see what it has. It's got a lot, and it generally rounds out my day and puts me at like 100% or more on everything. So I'm not saying I'm not deficient in some nutrients. Like, for example, there's foods that you can eat that the package says it has this much of a nutrient in it. Like, let's take beta carotene that you get from carrots. It'll say that you've got so much vitamin A from a carrot. But the conversion rate in your body, converting carotene to retinol, which is the form your body actually has to make it into to use it, is very low, something like 20%, 25%. So you can take that 1,000 international units of carotene that they're calling vitamin A, and you can, cut it down to 25% of that. That's what it actually is. But if you get it from an animal product like beef liver or eggs or milk or dairy, it's generally, the bulk of it's in retinol form, which is the form you use. So there's no conversion necessary. It goes in, your body can use it unless you have some genetic polymorphism or something that keeps you from absorbing certain nutrients. And that's the other thing. Nutrient absorption. If you want to go out and buy a supplement off the shelf and start taking it, you got to be careful, because let's say, for example, you heard that, hey, taking zinc is good because it's good for your skin, and it may help protect against COVID, and it's good for male fertility or whatever. So you go out and buy these 50 milligram zinc tablets, and you start popping zinc every day. Well, if you take a large dose of zinc, way over the RDA for zinc, you can start depleting your copper status in your body, and that's not something that you want to do. But here's what's interesting. When you go out and get a whole food, you find a food and you think of a food, what's a food that's got a lot of zinc in it? Okay, well, oysters have a lot of zinc. They also have copper. Okay, well, liver's got a lot of zinc. It also has copper. Oh, well, let's go to the vegetable kingdom. Pumpkin seeds, they have a lot of zinc. They also have copper. See, generally when you get foods from nature, these things that are complementary to one another are combined in that food. It's like eggs. I don't know if you know this or not, but if you're like I was when I was competing years ago in amateur local bodybuilding, I was never, like any big time bodybuilder or anything like that. But when I did the 1 or 2 local shows that I did, one when I was 19 and the other one was when I was 29 or 30. I can't ever remember which, but roughly right around there. I was eating egg whites as one of the main protein sources. Lots of egg whites. I mean, probably 15, 16 egg whites a day, 5 or 6 chicken breasts, a couple of cans of strained tuna, massive amounts of protein. Probably not the best thing in the world. Very low fat diet. No PUFA in it either, but I didn't know that. This is just bro science that everybody did back then because somebody way back when did it and it worked and everybody kind of copied it. So, a pound of broccoli a day, 2 or 3 large sweet potatoes, a bowl of steel cut oats, and the egg whites and all that stuff. Well, egg whites, if you eat a bunch of egg whites, they have this thing in them called avidin, and this protein in the egg white called avidin will strip biotin out of your body. It binds with biotin in your body, and it'll give you it'll deplete the biotin from your body. Interesting thing about an egg, there's more than enough biotin in the yolk to compensate for whatever's in the avidin. So if you're going to eat eggs, if you're going to eat egg whites, you probably need to supplement some biotin or get it from some other food source. But if you're going to eat whole eggs, you don't have to worry about it because there's more biotin in the yolk than it will be stripped out from the avidin in the egg white. Also, cooking egg whites, hard-boiled particularly, like for 4 or 5 minutes past the done point, seems to reduce the amount of avidin in the egg like by 90%. So it almost doesn't strip biotin out of your body. But I hope you get the picture that you're going to get nutrients in a form you can use from your food, whereas you go pick a supplement. And that's the other thing too, like we need a milligram of a certain B vitamin or a couple micrograms of a vitamin. And when you go searching for a supplement, it has 50 milligrams. So you're going to take, 5,000% of the RDA of something. And it's like, water soluble, maybe you're okay. Like it's a B vitamin, you're just going to take it in, your body uses what it needs, and then the rest of it's just going to go through you. Okay, hopefully that's what happens. But I don't really want to over-rev my system with a whole bunch of extra nutrients that my body doesn't need. I want to give it what it needs, and it's easy to do that from food. And then if there's any holes, and I see a hole in my plan, I have a hole in my plan, it's vitamin D, I take vitamin D, and I noticed that I was always just a little bit low in manganese. Now there's 2 things that could be happening. One, Chronometer says that they don't have really good data on manganese. A lot of nutritional labels don't report it and so forth. So there's not a lot of data on manganese. So maybe I am getting enough. But the foods that do report manganese content, At the end of the day, I was always like at 80%, 75%. I wasn't all the way there. I wasn't hitting 100% of the recommended daily intake, or they've changed the names of these things. It used to be the recommended daily allowance, and now they've got all kinds of weird names, and different ones have different names for them. But anyway, I was, not quite hitting it on that. And for the last year, I've had some nagging joint issues working out. I've had some this shoulder's been bothering me. I had an issue in my lat here, probably related. The lat went first, then the shoulder, a bicep, all on this left side, and then I had something happen to my right knee. And I got to looking into manganese, and it's like, well, it's extremely important for ligaments and tendons and cartilage and stuff like that. So I thought, well, let me find the lowest dose manganese supplement I can. And I found one, 10 milligrams. And that's still about, 600% of what I need daily. So I took the tablets. They're very hard. They're not scored. I put them on the edge of the counter. I broke them in half, and then I took the pieces and I broke them in half again. And I don't care that the little pieces are not exactly quarters, because I'm going to take it daily. I'm going to take these quarters daily. So the average for every day is now like 150%. So I take these manganese. Well, after taking the manganese for a couple days, shoulder stopped hurting, and the knee stopped hurting, and the lat stopped hurting. And I'm like, maybe it's coincidence. I don't know. I wasn't really expecting anything like that to happen. Certainly not right away. But it was like literally the day after I took it the first time, I felt better. And within a couple days of taking it, it was like virtually not there. It's not 100%. There is an injury in there. So, but it's way better now. It's at 90% instead of like 60% like it was before. Anytime I'd go heavy on a lift or something like that, I always feel it pinching in this shoulder. And when I got done, it's like hard to sleep at night. I sleep with my arms above my head like this, which I know is not good, but whatever. And my head's turned this way, and this shoulder's all pinched. And long story short, I took a nutrient. Shoulder's better. So it's important to get your nutrients from your food, but when you can't get them from your food, it may be okay to supplement, and try to supplement with the lowest dose you can to get your micronutrients where they need to be. So I just wanted to leave you guys with that, something to think about as far as the whole calories in, calories out thing. I've seen dozens and dozens of people do the Croissant diet, and many of them, the initial response for probably well over half is to drop a bunch of weight the first 3 weeks. Now the other half don't, and I can't explain that. They do lose, and they start losing steadily after a while, but quite a few of them have this burst right at the beginning. So that may happen to you, and I'm happy if it does for you, if that's what you want. But even the people who it didn't happen for, they still saw steady declines in their body weight, and improvements in their waist measurement and so forth from doing this. So keep this in mind too, guys. I'm not a doctor. I am not giving you medical advice. I am just sharing with you what I've learned about the Croissant diet, what I've done that works for me, and hopefully some of this information is something that can help you if you're trying to do it too. So God bless, and thanks for watching.